Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw. Now this photo is called double exposure. And there's a different feel in terms of the other images are a lot more clear in terms of what you see and what you think and what you can read. In this image, it's a black and white shot of, it could be two trucks next to each other, like the backs of them, or two containers, the backs of them with the sort of the mechanism to open or swing open or hinge open the backs. So it's a black and white shot. What I see as a first kind of pictorial sense is these like metal container, whatever, backs. And then because of double exposure, there's like an overlay of what could be ocean. I don't know if there's if the horizon of the image shows a town. It could maybe be. No, but now that I look at it, there's a ferry, I guess. And then the back of the spray of the ferry and behind. So I would guess this shot was made in Hong Kong.
It was.
Okay. And that was like a Hong Kong ferry. And since you live in Kennedy Town, I'm assuming you made this off of... Kennedy Town is on Hong Kong Island, for people who don't know.
Yep.
And so explain this image, please.
Yeah, so it's kind of to come full circle from the first image being how I got into photography. This one is more about what I'm doing now.
Okay.
So probably like a year, maybe 2 years ago, I got into film photography, as one, I suppose, does eventually, because these things are cyclical and it comes back around again. And
okay.
So film's very popular these days.
It is, okay.
With kids and whatever. Mostly hipsters, people who listen to vinyl records. It's the same crowd. There's a lot of the Venn diagrams too, concentric circles. So I've started getting into film, which has been an education. It's been a very crazy thing.
Expensive education?
Very expensive, okay. Yes.
Yeah.
that needs to be mentioned because it's not cheap.
Yeah.
Especially because I shoot medium format for no good reason.
No, listen, it's not for very many good reasons. But yeah, I'll argue with you till we're blue in the face. No, okay, no, got it. So which camera are you shooting with?
I think that one, I have a Mamiya 645 AF. So it actually has autofocus.
What? You betrayal.
I know.
It doesn't matter.
Well, I went through several manual focus ones before that.
Okay.
And I have a second medium format camera.
Don't let me give you a hard time. No, Mamiya's awesome. Yes.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah. So I've got two medium format cameras. They're both 645.
Uh-huh.
One's a rangefinder, which I had never shot with in my life.
Right.
So that's been fun to get to use. And the other one is this SLR. But they're both 645. Although the rangefinder is vertical orientation, it's portrait when you look through it. So they're very different cameras.
It's a different feel for sure.
Yeah, that's how I justify having both of them to myself.
Okay.
So yes, this was. I think I shot this roll of film. I decided to do double exposures on the whole roll just because I'd never really experimented with double exposure.
Yeah.
It's a really hard thing to get right because you really have to think ahead to two different frames and remember what the other one looks like, especially on film because you can't see it.
Yeah.
Right? And you don't get to see it until later, and you can't find out if you completely screwed it up or if it went well
for sure
until you get it back. So I shot this whole roll of double exposures, and this particular shot I think was on what's called Instagram Pier, colloquially.
Okay,
it's like Western Cargo Ferry Pier or something like that. If you look at it on Google Maps, it was open and full of Instagrammers for the longest time, but they've actually shut it again, so you can't go there anymore.
Oh, okay.
Which is kind of annoying because it was a good place to get these kind of maritime feeling photos. So the first exposure is of just a shipping container.
Yeah.
To get that kind of texture, right? That the metal and everything, and then the other one is just looking out over the harbor towards the Kowloon side with the ferry passing through.
Is this by the swimming shed? The pier, the Instagram pier.
Ish, yes.
Yeah, is that where people go swimming? I love that spot. So. Beyond the fact that it forces you to be beyond the exercise of shooting with film.
Yeah.
Beyond the sort of the constraints of I'm going to impose this constraint on me to change the process of making images. Yeah, so beyond the actual behavior change, what is different?
The behavior change is a big one. I don't want to discount it. This is I think one of the main reasons, like I did it as a challenge and also just something new. I think getting into film or switching to digital, if you're already just doing film, when you feel that you're stagnating a bit and you need a kick in the pants to go do something very different, changing format or changing, your medium, I think, can be a really helpful way to do that. So that's the main reason that I did it, and it is very different.
Okay.
But one of the things that I've really enjoyed is just shooting different film stocks.
Okay.
And just noting how the colors are rendered, how the dynamic range is, what you can get away with, what you can't.
Right.
Shooting slide film, for example, which is not forgiving at all.
Yeah.
Or color positive film. Because every film stock has a different look. And so you can't just load some film in and then just go outside and shoot. I mean, you can, but you won't be all that happy with the results, right? So you have to think, okay, I've got this film. It's good for these purposes. What could I go shoot that would really play well, on this type of film? So it makes you plan out your shoots in a bit of a different way.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because there's just more to think about. And I think one of the craziest things about film is just that the whole roll has this one ISO rating and you can't change it. Right? So like once you load it in there, you're shooting at ISO 200 or 400 or whatever it is the whole time. And you don't realize on digital camera how nice it is to be able to change that setting. Right. Because then you can just shoot whatever, whenever. But with film, you really can't. Yeah. So you're locked in for that many exposures at that, and you got to get through it before you can do something different. Right. It's crazy. It's so restricting, and the fact that every time you pull the trigger, it's like $1 that's just going out the window.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
It really makes you stop and think about what you're doing and say, like, do I really want this frame? Right. Instead of having $1, because that's really the choice.
It makes you a lot more. It makes you a lot more deliberate. Absolutely. Yes. It's a different process.
Yeah, I still very much feel like I'm learning, feeling my way through.
Sure.
Because there's just so much to get around, and one thing I'm trying to get used to is like bracketing my shots, and not just assuming that I'm metering correctly and that it's going to look good. Right. Because if it doesn't, I'm not going to know that for like a week. Exactly. Right. And then I can't go back and shoot it. I mean, I can, but the moment is kind of past at that point. So it's really made me focus on exposure more than I have to with digital.
What you need to do next, after you get beyond this stage, is get yourself a nice 4x5. Okay. And then an 8x10.
You mean like large format?
Yeah.
And those guys I see with the hoods and like the little bellows.
Yes. Okay. And then, because then each time you trip the shutter, it's that much more expensive, and you're going to have to be a lot more thoughtful and there's an interesting thing about what happens in terms of your sense of time, right? Mm-hmm. Like a photograph, let's just say at 1/25th of a second is capturing 1/25th of a second of time onto this sensor, this film, and then you look at it after the fact, and then that's what you're reflecting on. Yep. So how much is photography at this point in your life more than just a hobby?
I think, it's maybe always been, or for a long time has been more than just a hobby. It's very important for me to, like, I actually go back and look at photos I've taken often. Okay. For lots of various reasons. Sometimes they're just photos that I like and I like looking at them. Yeah. Other times it's because I want to reminisce. Like people go through an old photo album for the same reason.
For sure.
Because I don't just keep photos that, I mean, I do delete quite a lot. I don't keep most photos. I probably err on the side of deleting something if I can't think of a good reason to keep it. But I've still, over the years, amassed thousands of photos that I can look through at a moment's notice. So I think it's definitely more like I enjoy the act of photography. Like that's the hobby part, like getting out of the house, grabbing either the medium format camera or my digital, and going out to a place and working really hard to come home with a couple of shots that I like. Right. Because I do enjoy the process, from start to finish, really, from conception to post-processing and showing other people and getting their reactions and all that stuff. So that's all great. But after it's all over, I do like the keepsake as well. Yeah. Like there are some photos that I'm proud of that I'm like, wow, I did that. That was, or I'll go back and look at an old photo, like some of my old stock stuff, and I was like, wow, I was really young and I had no idea what I was doing. And look what I can do now, right?
Well, it's a process, right, that you're kind of going through.
Yeah, so I'm glad that I still have, this range to reflect, because it really shows my development over the years, and that's something that I can look at, and I think that's more than a hobby as well.
How did Rachel and you cross paths?
That's
because
also interesting.
Because she, as a mensch of the arts, really, as such a kind-hearted connector.
Yeah, it's not how you would think. It's just complete serendipity, just coincidence, basically. So when I moved to Hong Kong, I moved here alone. I didn't know anybody. I'd never been to Asia before. I just took a job here, basically, sight unseen, and showed up. And so my very first few weeks here, I was looking for groups, like meetup groups, things to do. Just basically typing my interests as keywords into meetup and seeing if there are any groups around. And one of the first groups that I found was Hong Kong Skeptics, because I had been doing I was really into skepticism and science and all that kind of thing when I came. And so I figured, I'll find a group of like science-minded skeptic people. And so I did. There was a group called Hong Kong Skeptics, Skeptics in the Pub. They meet in the pub once a month and talk about science or quackery or whatever it happens to be. And so I found that, and I went to those meetings. And at the time, they were run by a guy named David Young, who is sadly no longer with us. He died of ALS a few years ago. But he had started that group. And so I got to know him quite well just by showing up every month. And I was actually there taking photos. So I would show up. No one asked me to, but I just, always camera in hand. So I would always show up and take photos and maybe like put them on the Facebook group or something. And so David noticed that I was taking photos there, and he said, "Hey, I run this other group called Hong Kong Stories. Mm-hmm. Would you mind coming over and taking some photos of our shows, of our monthly shows?" So I don't know when that happened. That was probably 5 or 6 years ago now. So that's how I got into Hong Kong Stories, which is where Rachel is from, basically. So that's my connection to her. So I had to go, back a few different ways through David Young. But yeah, it's because of him that I'm with the group at all.
James, thank you so much. I had no idea. And I didn't tease you too much about Latin. I've had one Latin course in my whole life. One's good. It's a good start. Yeah, it's a good start. But I'm not here to tease. I'm here to learn. I hope I've been a good student. I have really appreciated it. This is great. It's been fun. Good. Do you have a show coming up? Anything like that? Any books? Tonight is Hong Kong Literary Festival. Right. Yeah, so by the time you hear this, it's already over. Sorry. Yeah. You listeners out there. But yeah, so I'll be shooting for Hong Kong Stories tonight. If anyone wants to see my photography, it's at jamesrodkey.com. Yeah, wicked. Yeah. James, thank you so much. Of course. Fist bump. Yeah, boom. Bump it out. Nice. So is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share. Shooting it raw? Yes. Shooting it raw.